Welcome to Digitel Talk podcast, where we spotlight entrepreneurs and innovators leveraging technology related to telecoms to drive positive global impact. I am here with my co-host, Frankie Spagnolo, and today our guest is Dr. Bilel Jamoussi, who for the last 13 years has held the position of Deputy Director for the Telecommunication Standardisation Bureau based in Geneva, part of the ITU, the leading UN agency for digital technologies. Bilel was guest only a few months ago before he went to the WTSA 24, which was held in New Delhi from the 15th to 24th of October. Therefore, Bilel is our first returning guest.
Today's episode is sponsored by IFG Consulting Europe, a leading business growth consultancy representing promising software providers selling to the telecoms, enterprise and mobile markets in Europe. Go to ifgconsultingeurope.com to find out more.
Hello, Frankie. What are you interested in hearing about today?
Hello, Ian. This is actually the first meeting since the GDC and the sort of Pact for the Future at the UN, which I think brought a lot of new energy and new participation into the event. And so without further ado, Bilel, I'd like to welcome you back to Digitel Talk. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much, Frankie and Ian. And it's a pleasure to join you again today.
So tell me, was this a bigger event because of the alignment through the UN and these major organizations really starting to say, if we get ahead of things and we get together, then we will compound our effect? Did you see that this year?
I think it's a combination of several factors, including certainly the Summit of the Future, the Global Digital Compact, feeding into that and having the World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly be the first major event of the UN and ITU, particularly after GDC, helped a lot. And just to give a specific example, we had the UN Tech Envoy join us via video during our Global Standards Symposium, the session we had on the International AI Standards Summit. So certainly the topics and the venue and the fact that India has put a lot of effort in ensuring the success of this event that we organized has made it a huge success.
And this was the first time the event was in the Asian region at all, correct?
This is the first time in Asia that brought 3,700 participants from 164 countries.
Wow.
And 36 digital ministers, which was certainly a record-breaking for our WTSA events.
And you guys take proposals and paper submissions from all over. From my understanding, at every level, from the submissions from the industry all the way up to those digital ministers, you have seen more participation this year.
Indeed, we had close to 240 submissions from the 6 regional groups of the ITU and multi-country contributions from member states. So there were many proposals the Assembly considered on exciting topics like the artificial intelligence, the metaverse, the sustainable digital transformation. In fact, the Assembly approved 8 new resolutions and modified 44 existing resolutions. It was a very busy time with all these contributions and proposals, but on all new digital topics that the world is facing.
And let's talk about that just a little bit. But before we dig into what a resolution is, how the ITU at this event does their voting, which is not really always what you do because this is a consensus organization as well. Maybe you could give our listeners, for those of them who are new, just a brief overview about the ITU and what this event is really used for.
Yeah, sure. So the ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Digital Technologies. It has a very unique composition of membership. It has 194 member states who are contributing to the ITU. We have 1,000 private sector entities, so big companies, small companies, and so on that are in the digital space. And of course, close to 200 universities and research institutes. And our members drive the work, and the secretariat where I work in Geneva, we provide the platform to make sure that those agreements among the countries and the private sector and the academics, when it comes to standard, in my case, can be far-reaching and can be impactful and can really help having a better life for all using digital technologies.
And that's also what we're here for on this show, right? How digital technologies can help impact the lives of everybody for good.
And one of the things which I think is interesting for audiences also around, if you understand it correctly, there's study groups, there's focus groups and workshops, so people can get involved at different levels. How does that sort of come together to create and work towards agreement?
Yeah. So beyond the WTSA, which is held every 4 years and agrees on the priorities of the next 4 years, one of the things that WTSA agrees on is the structure of those study groups and the topics that they work on, and the leadership team, the chairs and vice chairs that will lead the effort. And so the outcome of this WTSA was 10 different study groups of different topics, from fiber optic standards to international numbering resources to video coding. But what's exciting is that we had a new study group on cable television and multimedia, consolidated between existing study groups within the ITU. That makes it more relevant and makes it more powerful and efficient to do the work on all the multimedia aspects. And then from the study groups, they developed international standards. Sometimes when those study groups need new topics that may not be in the purview of the current structure and mandate and so on, and need some non-members, we create focus groups that last for a year. They work on those new topics, and then they submit the reports and specifications for the study groups to work on. And of course, the workshops and the symposia are a mechanism to interact with the rest of the world, either to identify new topics or to promote new standards that were just approved by the ITU.
It's a lot of layers and a lot of work going on. And as most of us know who've ever worked in a large institution or even in SMEs, it can be a little bit like herding cats to try to get everybody to agree on something. How does the ITU in moments like this use that structure to come to consensuses or to a vote?
Most of the time, our work is decided by consensus. 99% of the time, I would say even more, because with the standards that come out from the ITU, it's important for their adoption and use that they are developed by consensus and that they bring all the views and voices are heard in the process. So those study groups meet on a regular basis via virtual meetings, but also in person, to work on the differences and the commonalities of the various proposals. And there is a common purpose. A lot of our work is driven by industry that has products that they want to sell. And in order to sell the products, they need to adhere and comply to international standards. And many countries, even though our standards are voluntary, once the standards are out, then countries will put them in RFPs and put them sometimes in their regulation. So there is a common purpose of all the players to make sure that the system works and that we can do things in a timely fashion, because it is needed for the business. It's needed by the policymakers and the regulators to regulate the environment and provide a fair and enabling playing ground. And it's needed by those universities that have a lot of new ideas and new patents, and they want to see those ideas embedded in international standards.
And so this is the place to start. And as you said, there was a revived energy around this, I think, with the emerging technologies of AI, the conversations about ethics everywhere. This had to be driving a lot of the thinking internally. What was the attendee mix as far as gender goes? I know that we, in the tech and the STEM industries, as a subset are really trying to find that equality and push for that in high level situations?
That's an excellent question. We had a drive towards WTSA to have more women participate in the delegations and also more leadership for women. We had a 26% participation of women at the WTSA, the World Telecom Standards Assembly, which is below our target, which was 32%. But we understand that there is still work to be done to ensure that when countries and companies decide on their delegations, they need to keep the gender balance of their delegation in mind. So there is some work to do on that front. And that's why we have the Network of Women in Standards. That is an ongoing team with 6 regional representatives or champions that try to drive that message and ensure that gender balance is a priority. The good news, though, where we have exceeded the target is in the nomination and the appointment of new women at the leadership positions. So we went from 1 woman chair of the 10 study groups to 2. And then at the vice chair level, we also increased significantly the number of women vice chairs in the various study groups. So on the leadership front, we're doing well. In terms of the overall participation, there's a bit more work to be done.
Wonderful. And of course, the ITU is led by Secretary General Doreen Bogdan Martin. Yes. So you have a female at the head of the organization.
Indeed. And she's the first woman Secretary General in 160 years history of the ITU.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Sounds like there's some good progress being made there. Moving on to one of the key topics that most likely was a headline topic was AI. And I think AI is such a broad area as well, right? What does it really mean? It has all sorts of conceptual ideas behind it and can be used in different ways. But how does such a broad topic, how do you go about standardizing that? And do you see it more and more across the work groups as well? How do you see that? And how do you strike the balance, if you like, as well?
Yes.
Because on one side, trying to standardize, and at the same time, not trying to stop people from doing things either. And it's a challenge, I think.
Right. The good news is that, as you said, in the AI work is cutting across all of our study groups. In fact, we published 100 standards that have AI and machine learning in all aspects of digital technologies. And we have another 150 work items in progress. So in terms of the study groups and focus groups, they're very busy working on various AI and machine learning technologies. What was new at the assembly is the new resolution on the AI and its safety. And also in that resolution, there was a recognition of the AI for Good platform and a desire and an agreement among all of our members to continue the great momentum and the great leadership that we have been able to achieve on AI through the AI for Good platform. And thirdly, the launch of the first ever International AI Standards Summit in New Delhi that was over 4 days, with the first day including the Tech Envoy, the United Nations Tech Envoy, Mr. Amandeep Singh, who joined us at the launch of this International AI Standards Summit, with the other standards organizations, ISO, IEC, IEEE, ETSI, the Internet Engineering Task Force. So it was a very collaborative effort to drive the collaboration on AI standards. And then we had a number of digital wave stage sessions on AI. And then we concluded with the first AI for Good Impact India, where we had a dedicated stream of work on international standards. And this is the first of a series of events that are planned next year in 2025 in December. There will be the International AI Standards Summit 2025 in Seoul, Korea. And as a midpoint, we have an International Standards Day here in Geneva at the AI for Good during the 8 to 11 July AI for Good Summit in Geneva. So that has created a lot of momentum and visibility to the work, provided us for a very good collaborative platform on AI standards, and give ITU in particular the mandate to continue to drive this work in the study groups and the AI for Good platform.
And I was going to say that AI, and I said this last time, but the AI for Good platform is something that is open all year long. It is an app that you can download on your phone. It has an extensive network of executives and people across the world in technology and in standards who are collaborating and on there regularly. So it's a way to be consistently involved in ensuring that we're all working towards AI for good, right? And that we're all contributing.
Absolutely. And just last week, I just came back from COP29, and where we had a number of sessions showing how AI is important for climate change related events in terms of natural hazards, whether it's floods, earthquakes, mudslides, and so on, that AI allows us to process massive amounts of satellite images, lots of data from sensors on the ground to be able to detect if something is going to happen, and also to be able to early warn the populations that are going to be impacted as early as possible using various channels of communication, including AI to do a bit of profiling on the social media news around any things happening. So AI plays an important role for saving lives when it comes to disasters and natural hazards.
Because at that moment, speed is of the essence, both in understanding it before it hits and communicating it before it hits, but also in being able to understand what resources are still up and functioning after the event does hit, where you can communicate to. Previously, it's been, 15 years since the hurricane in New York, but the telcos weren't necessarily collaborating on their role in that effort. Have you seen a more collaborative, valuable, come to the table positioning?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why and through which channels. One of them is a standard in the ITU called the Common Alerting Protocol, CAP, that basically takes any message and sends it through various channels, whether it's Google or cell broadcasts or TV broadcasts. So all the channels available to communicate with the target population. This is a standard called X1303 in the ITU. And that has been a very good way to bring all of the private sector, the operators, whether they're traditional operators or new players like Google and others, to communicate in a seamless, transparent, and standards way to the target population. The other reason we are seeing a lot more focus on early warning is the United Nations Secretary General Early Warning for All initiative that brings the World Meteorological Organization, the ITU, the Red Cross, and other UN agencies to collaborate to make sure that there is an early warning for all capability in at least 30 countries to start. And of course, once we finish the first phase, we will try to scale this to all member states of the UN. So that, yes, given the climate change and its acceleration of natural hazards, and the fact that now we have new technologies and we have new initiatives and we have new standards, there is a lot more focus and collaboration on ensuring that detection, mitigation, and communication is handled in a more standard and seamless way.
I think that brings us really to the next very important part, which is this climate change and the industry's role in it. Obviously, the greening of events is a major topic across the world, from the Olympics to Mobile World Congress to your all's various events. So what kind of resolutions or action items were talked about it and came out of the event in regards to climate change and the sustainable development goals from the UN and our efforts as an industry within that?
That's a great question. There is one resolution that was amended or modified, which is Resolution 73 on the environment. It now highlights and stresses topics such as biodiversity that is impacted by e-waste and other significant energy and water resource use. The concept of circularity. So when someone designs a new digital tool or device, they think about how it's going to be recycled up front. So it's by design. It's not something that is an afterthought. And how do we optimize, reduce material use? Like when you create a connector for fiber optics, can you reduce the amount of plastics around the connector? The answer is yes. And there is a new standard on it that we saw at COP29 last week. So optimizing material use, conservation, can we restore the restoration of things in the network? Having modular design so that you can plug and play different pieces of the solution. And overall, how can we reduce e-waste and provide more infrastructure sharing so that not every operator builds their own towers, but they could share that infrastructure, which will reduce e-waste overall and energy use. So these are some of the things that are now embedded in our new resolution on the environment, the resolution 73. But in addition, we have a new resolution on sustainable digital transformation, so that when countries and companies work on new digital transformation solutions, they have sustainability by design in all aspects of data centers, use of AI, connectivity. So these are some of the two most significant outcomes of WTSA when it comes to the environment. And we were able to capitalize on that just last week at the COP29 by having the first ever digitization day at COP29 with Green Digital Action Declaration that was endorsed by 1,000 entities, including 90 different countries. So we're very excited about this interplay between the standards, the early warning work, and the Green Digital Action that was endorsed just a few days ago, actually Saturday last week in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Saturday, you guys never stop working.
I think we said that last time, that the sun never sets on Bilal's work. he just has to take some time off. But another, of course, in part that digital supports going forward is financial inclusion and fintech. So was there any updates on that side of things as well? Because lots of people rely on digital, including ourselves really, in doing what we're doing. But digital is now more important than ever.
Absolutely. Financial inclusion, we have a resolution 89 on financial inclusion that was also revised to reinforce the need for collaboration between governments and among government agencies, because like in financial inclusion, you need to have the central bank talking to the telecom regulator and make sure that there is an enabling environment. So that has been reinforced between telecommunication companies and financial institutions, so operators and banks, and for implementing mechanisms and the required infrastructure to make it trustworthy, because that's a critical test with the user. If they trust a mechanism, they're going to put their money on the default. If they don't trust it, they're not going to use various financial inclusion mechanisms.
That's true. That's true.
And I will say that's been a problem for generations, right? I know my Italian grandmother, when she first came over to America, I heard stories about it took forever to get a bank account, right? Keeping it under their bed. So that trust is that challenge has always been there. And of course, now you can't even talk to somebody. 3 of the banks that I use are digital banks. They don't even have a door I can walk in anywhere. So
exactly.
It's a whole new world. Speaking of whole new worlds and virtual cities or virtual worlds for cities, and this kind of links into all of it, right? How we consumers move within our city and operate within our city, but then also traffics and lights and all these big things that conceptually governments have said, this is going to help us, right? This is why we want AI. This is why we want IoT. This is because we've got these city infrastructures. But playing with them within the metaverse, at least for me, is still confusing about how that's a value. And especially since the metaverse, takes a lot of energy to run. What really is the effort here? And what did you find was valuable out of this virtual worlds for cities channel that you guys had at the event?
So virtual and the metaverse in the cities is a great way to simplify the experience of the citizen when they want to have a service provided by the city hall. So instead of walking to the city hall and having to do a lot of paperwork, or in the, let's say, City 101, going on a web page and having to do some of the work on a web page, take that experience from a web page to an immersive experience where you can really interact with an agent of the city almost in a virtual form, but almost like a presential, as if you're present in the city hall. That's what the metaverse can do in terms of easing the experience of services. And on that front, that's so the example of the metaverse in the city. We had a new resolution that was approved at WTSA to promote and strengthen the standardization work, the collaboration amongst standards organizations, integrating the metaverse as one way of providing virtual services, and to also ask the study groups to continue working on sustainable use of the metaverse in various applications, including cities. But we also had another resolution on IoT and smart cities that was updated at WTSA, Resolution 98, that talked about twinning, creating digital twins to the cities to allow for a more seamless operation, more seamless management of the city, if you will. And it focuses on a lot of the numbering, operational aspect, the identity management of IoT devices, the security aspects of the Internet of Things in smart cities, and also to promote this more, because not every mayor around the world knows of the availability and of these technologies to help them better manage the city.
And certainly it's a big distinction between something that is a light touch like the IoT and the digital twin and the sort of low cost, low energy requirements that requires versus the immersive city hall consumer experience, where my first question would be, is this perhaps a little bit elitist, this city hall thing? Because you need 5G or more connection, right? Really, for a truly immersive experience, you need some sort of immersive device to be viewing it through. And we still have 3 billion people unconnected, which I'm certain is something you guys also spoke about. But how do you balance pushing forward something as a niche, as a consumer walking into a virtualized city hall?
Yeah, certainly from a sustainability perspective, we have to always watch e-waste and make the products that are used in metaverse or other digital technologies more recyclable and so on, so that we can reduce the e-waste aspect. But on the other hand, not having to drive 10 or 20 miles to go from your home to the city hall to get service done is a big avoidance of greenhouse gas emission. And so one needs to balance the full experience or the immersive experience with the alternatives. Some people may not be physically able to go to the city hall, and some might have certain disabilities and so on that could be augmented when you have VR or augmented reality capability. So there's always two sides to the coin. There is some of the challenges, but certainly new opportunities that open up.
We had a nice interview with a company called AIM Sun, who are actually based in Europe, and they're collecting data on transportation, because I think this segues nicely into it, around cities. So they're involved with the planning of Paris Olympics and where to close off roads, where to allow particular routes for the ambulances of emergency services to go. I think that plays quite well into the question of how do you create smarter and better cities, and also related to the traffic, but also the way people can make the standard of living better and the quality of life better. But also I think brings into, you had another topic of intelligent transport systems, or is that a different aspect there?
Yeah, we're actually very excited by the new resolution on intelligent transportation systems and connected vehicles, because the smarter the transportation system, the more lives we can save on the road. The road accidents are still a leading cause of deaths around the world. 1.3 million people lose their lives on the road every year. And the more we introduce capabilities in the car and in the connectivity of the car with the other motor vehicles of the road, as well as connectivity with the road itself, and those new systems allow to reduce the fatality significantly by detecting vehicles on your left and right, by staying in your lane, by reducing the speed automatically when you're in cruise control with the distance from the car in front of you automatically computed by the car, and your car reduces the speed when the one in front of you is also reducing speed. So all those capabilities are only possible when the car is connected and when the car is smart. And having this new resolution in the ITU is building on the many years of us hosting here in Geneva something called the Future Networked Car Symposium, FNC. It used to be part of the Geneva Motor Show, where all the car manufacturers come. And we have a workshop for a day to highlight the connectivity aspects. Now the Geneva Motor Show is no longer taking place here in Geneva. So next year in 2025, what we're going to do is bring the FNC with the AI for Good in July. So because AI for Good and FNC have many things in common. Of course, the connectivity of the cars, but more importantly, the autopilots, the AI driver of autonomous cars is a new exciting area of work. And we are going to bring those two together in Geneva in July. So in addition to this new resolution, we have on vehicular communication that looks at V2V, vehicle to vehicle to infrastructure, V2X, and the collaboration we have with the UNECE, which is the regulator in the UN of the automotive sector. We're trying to also promote the autonomy in driving and the safe autonomous driver to make sure that the AI driver is held accountable like a human driver with the same rules and regulations.
You're now to talk about the autonomous vehicle level 4 and 5. I think there's a bridge, isn't there, between where the car, or let's say the manufacturer of the car, could be made reliable if it doesn't behave properly. And there is a huge, important step function change in responsibility, which I'm not sure the insurance world has yet fixed. I don't know. Did you come up with that one around insurance as well?
That is definitely a recurring theme in our Future Network Car Symposium and autonomous driving, the liability question and the data question and so on, and the insurance and access to the data. That is certainly something that is still developing. I wouldn't say it's been resolved yet, but having these regular platforms and a focus at the international stage with ITU and the automotive industry allows us to unpack those questions and try to find the best solution forward.
So at NWC 24, there was an unmanned helicopter drone that I believe they used or tried to use at the Olympics. When we start thinking about, or are you guys starting to think about in the sky, small use vehicles like that in reality? Or is that just one of them, come look at my booth and look what I spent our money on last year type things that happens at Mobile World Congress?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say the focus is not there when we talk about vehicular communication. It's mostly on the ground because that's where a lot of the challenges are today. Certainly keeping an eye on the future for unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles and drones and others. Especially when it comes to spectrum use. That's where our radio sector in the ITU is more active. We and in the ITUT, in the standardization sector, focus more on in this area on the V2V, V2X connectivity, the autonomy of driving, certainly in collaboration with the radio colleagues, because when we talk about V2V and V2X, we're also using LiDARs and 5G or other wireless communication. So on the spectrum side, that's certainly an area of collaboration we have with the radio sector of the ITU.
So we've gone through several aspects of the event, but what was your sort of favorite part or most impactful resolution, do you think, that will surprise? There's two questions there. Let's stick with the first one, which was, what was your favorite part? And then the second one part would be as to what do you think was most impactful?
I think I have two big favorite parts, and they're interlinked. First, that we have broken all records at this WTSA with the number of participants, the number of excitements, the media uptake, having the Prime Minister Modi at the opening, having so many ministers present. So the overall visibility and impact of the event was tremendous. And the other side is the content. The output of the assembly was tremendous in terms of 8 new resolutions on all of the major topics, from AI to the metaverse to sustainable digital transformation to the vehicular communication and so on. To me, those were like the big success, and being able to pull those off together was a tremendous effort on the ITU team and the India team. So we had a very good collaboration with India Ministry of Communication and Department of Telecommunication, and close to 160 staff from the ITU that were on site in New Delhi to pull this off. And of course, our membership, 160 countries, 34 ministers, their leadership and their presence and their contribution allowed us to have this rich content come out of WTSA.
Right.
Do you think that you're really seeing, at least on my end, I had seen a shift in the last 18 months to 2 years of new thinking, of really saying the way that we did it before didn't necessarily yield the returns or the execution that we wanted, and we're in a moment where we can get ahead. Are you really seeing, in addition to the added participation, that those who are participating are bringing a new energy and new ideas, that sort of this old standard, this is the way it's been done, is going out the back door?
No, absolutely. Doing things differently and in a more inclusive way has been, I think, the secret of success. Bringing a focus on youth and having the Kaleidoscope Conference be part of the WTSA brought us a lot of young engineers, young professors. Having the robotics competition brought us even high school students that had great ideas on programming the robot. Having the network of women focus brought more women in the leadership. So the inclusivity angle was great and important, but also using social media in the run-up to WTSA and during WTSA allowed us to have a much better, closer communication with the digital generation, the youth, and to also be really global in terms of the reach. There was very positive to neutral coverage. 99% of the media coverage was positive to neutral, which is amazing. We had 3.6 billion global media reach during the event. So yes, I think doing it differently, thinking outside the box, and not only focused on the usual business of WTSA, but having all the extras around it with the side events and the youth events and so on, made us more closer to everyone who is using digital technology around the world.
And on just one last note, because in some of my reading, the internet regulations have somehow become part of what you guys are doing, or not regulations, standardizations. And there was resolution around the IPv6 or not a resolution, but an action item. What's the difference there? And why is internet and domain names linked somehow with telecommunications?
There we play a very complementary role to the Internet Engineering Task Force and to the ICANN. The ICANN chair was part of our GSS. She was a speaker at GSS. What we tried to do is really help promote the implementation of IPv6 that is developed and standardized in the ITF, and help the registries in the transition from V4 to V6, because we have a very close collaboration with the ministries and the telecom regulators and the 194 member states. So we play a bridging role or a complementary role to help other sister agencies or organizations like ITF and ICANN achieve their goal. But that's on one hand in terms of the V6 question. The other hand of connectivity, if you're not connected to the network, and we still have 2.4 billion people who are not connected,
That's
You
right.
don't have a 5G connection or a DSL connection or a Wi-Fi connection and so on, you cannot benefit from the internet. So our standards, like fiber optic standards, for example, and access standards, help promote the adoption and the connectivity to the internet. And that's where we also have a very complementary role. Of course, the domain names are managed by ICANN and the registries in terms of IPv6 address allocation. Our role, again, is really complementary and supportive to ensure that we're connected and our members have the latest technologies and knowledge in-house to be able to benefit from the internet.
It's a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of effort from stakeholders across the globe. I applaud you for being a part of such an organization. It's important for everybody to understand how we turn on our phones and they just magically work. It doesn't just happen without the kind of behind the scenes in advance standardization and work of your team and teams in associations across the globe. So how do we, as we look towards the next year, I know this next event, there's not another one of these events for 4 years, but how do people get involved?
Yeah, anyone can get involved as part of their member state delegation or their company, if the company is a member of the ITU, or their university, if the university is a member of the ITU. And if they're not a member and they want to join any of our events, focus groups, meetings that are open to non-members, all of the workshops and AI for Good online and offline is totally open. They just need to register for the event and have access. And of course, our members are rolling up their sleeves and starting the study group meetings as of the first week of January. So those are certainly various touch points on people getting involved and collaborating and contributing to these amazing new standards that we are developing.
And do you think that, given that you also just visited, I think you said COP29, are we still on target related to the commitments to net zero? And how does that play out, do you think, going forward? Particularly as you mentioned briefly that the data centers you mentioned, and we know that there's a huge drive currently and there's a huge amount of effort actually. I don't mention particular companies' names, but I can use the technology called a GPU, where sort of farms are being built up for data centers for large language modeling. But just wondering, to what extent do you feel confident and hopeful that the work that you're doing is able to continue on the track to make the plan more sustainable?
So after the signing and the endorsement of the Green Digital Action Declaration by 1,000 entities, including 90 countries on Saturday last week, I'm quite hopeful because we believe digital plays a huge role in allowing us to get faster to the 1.5 C target, because digital allows to dematerialize and avoid having material and energy use in the other sectors, even though the digital sector itself has about 2 to 3% of the overall energy use, but it has a mitigation factor that is probably in order of magnitude more to reduce the emission of other sectors by using AI, by using connectivity, by using data centers, by using telecommunication infrastructure. So that's what we try to ensure, that the negotiators at COP29 are aware and take digital as a new tool in being able to reach those targets.
Okay. Digital intelligence being the way forward. So is there anything else you'd like to add for audience to know about the event before we close off?
No, I think it's an amazing event. It was really satisfactory and beyond my person. For someone who had the pleasure and the honor of organizing this event, we were very excited with the outcomes. We hope this is an opportunity for more engagement by everyone, governments, private sector, universities, in our work. So we can work together, because all of the new standards are the product of ideas coming from all of these entities. So a call to everyone to join our effort and work with us to make the world better through digital.
That's right in line with what we believe in. So I will echo that in a call to everybody to join the efforts at the ITU, to come on our podcast and talk about what tech you're doing that's bringing good into the world, because we really do have an order of magnitude of effect over so many other industries in order to be able to affect change. And with that, with great power comes great responsibility. So thank you for helping lead that responsible efforts on our industry's behalf. It's really a pleasure to speak to you. And I do hope that you will come back and share with us as we have updates through the year what you guys are doing at the ITU.
With great pleasure, Frankie and Ian, anytime.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to our new podcast. If you have any feedback or know of any stories to be told involving digital technology and telecoms doing good, then please do let us know via our email, getintouch@digiteltalk.com. Also, feel free to send us a message on LinkedIn. It'd be great to hear from you.
Before we go, if you've enjoyed today's episode and would like to support the podcast, then don't forget to give us a follow and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to leave us a review or share it with your colleagues, it really helps us on the channel. Thanks so much for being a part of our audience today, and hopefully you'll join us next time.
That's all we've got time for, so it's goodbye from me.
And that's goodbye from him.
Bye
for now.
now.